Welcome to your AnyTone 878UVII Plus Quick Start Guide. I'm Cody, W3AMG with Bridgecom Systems. And today in front of me we have the brand new AnyTone 878UVII Plus. The purpose of today's video is to share with you everything that you need to know to get your 878UVII Plus up and running right out of the box. We'll walk you through exactly what to expect in the package and go step by step through programming your 878UVII Plus. Let's see what's inside the box. So here we have the brand new 878UVII Plus, and you can see the packaging is actually different. It looks more fancy and is definitely a lot cooler than the old packaging on the old radios. So let's open it up. First thing we are greeted with here is a couple of AnyTone stickers. Set them aside, and then let's see, what is this? It would appear as though here's some information on how to get on Bridgecom University. That will include your custom code to get on Bridgecom University. Okay, and that is definitely a resource you are going to want to use. Unless you have a plug-and-play package, that is going to be the best and fastest way to get on the air with your radio. Then we have this Bluetooth user guide as well as the manual for your radio itself. The Bluetooth guide is pretty simple for getting the Bluetooth set up. The user guide can be a little bit confusing, so we would definitely recommend Bridgecom University if you need more help after this. Next up, we have the radio, so we'll get it out in the package here. We're going to need that for programming it up in a second. Okay. Then here we have the programming kit, a little bit further down in the box. So we will also need that, so I'll take that out of the package real quick. Then we have a wrist strap. Then another USB cable. So this USB cable has just a regular end and then two micro USB ends on one side. Now that will be used for our Bluetooth push-to-talk button if you want to charge it. And I believe the second USB cable is made so you can charge the Q8 headset, the Bluetooth earpiece, at the same time. There we go. And then here is a little wrist strap, or not wrist strap, but a steering wheel strap for your Bluetooth push-to-talk button. These are great. You can actually strap them right on your steering wheel in your vehicle, and that way you can be driving down the road totally hands-free, talking on your radio. Then we have a belt clip for our battery. Let's see. Then we have the charger. There's two portions of the charger. We have the drop-in charger itself, as well as the wall wart here. And we have a battery. Take it out of the package here real quick. There we go. Now one of the great things about this charger is you can actually charge the battery as you would expect with the radio. So we'll get the battery out real quick here, attach that to our radio. We're going to need that in a second. You can drop the whole radio in here like you would expect, but what you can also do is take the battery off and just charge the battery itself. That way you can have, I like to have two batteries, so I keep one on the charger at all times, and then it will stop charging once the light turns green, so it can just sit there and be ready. And then whenever it comes time to change the battery, you just take the battery off, slap it in your radio, put the old one on the charger, and it's a highly efficient way to do it. Let's see, what else do we have? Looks like the last thing we have in the box here is our antenna, and we will need this as well. So you get that on the radio. So these are the items we're going to need for the initial programming and setup of the radio. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and program up our first channel into our radio and see if we can get on the air. So make sure your radio is turned on, and we'll find out what firmware it has here in a second. Now what you want to do is take this programming cable and get it ready. One side of this is going to plug into your radio. The other side will plug into your computer. So let me plug this in real quick to my computer. And then on this side of the radio, there's a flap, and you'll see it has the headphone and the microphone jack. Be careful you don't mix it up with this side. You don't want to accidentally pull off your push-to-talk button because they won't go back in. So open up your programming port over here. There we go. And go ahead and plug in your programming cable just like so. You can just hit confirm on the time. There's a much easier way to calibrate the time with the GPS later. And we'll wait for it to power up here. Now at this point, no matter what radio you have, it's always good to check what firmware version it's running. That way you can download the correct CPS. So as we can see, it doesn't have much of a timer right now. It just times out immediately. So go to Menu, and then we'll go to Settings. There we go, select Settings. And then we can go to Device Info and scroll down until you see firmware version. So firmware version 1.00. There we go, perfect. Now, in this case, we may not be able to get one that old, so we'll see what's available. So what we want to do now is go to bridgecomsystems.com. And from here, you will click on Support up in the top menu bar. And now here, you want to scroll down. Now, there's a lot of information on this page, which is great, a great resource, but you will want to find this radio. So in this case, the 878 Plus UV2. So I'm just going to scroll down until I find that. Okay, here we go. There's the older 878. Here's the UV2. So go ahead and click on this, the firmware and driver downloads. There we go. Now we can see what version's available. It looks like, okay, so it's telling us the CPS is compatible with all of the firmwares here. So we can go ahead and download this current version of the CPS, and it should work fine with this radio. So we'll just save that to our desktop. There we go. Wait for that to download. It's complete. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of my web browser here. And now we can see we have this zip folder. So what you want to do is right-click on this folder you just downloaded. And any Windows computer will have this ability. Then you want to click Extract All. And from here, we can just extract it directly to the desktop, just where we have it located. So just click Next. And we'll give that a second to extract. This is just decompressing all those files. And here we go. Here's all of the files. It opened up that folder for us. So we don't need everything here immediately. What we want initially is the CPS. So we want to double click on that and go ahead and install this application. Now I'll walk you through this. It's pretty simple, just like any other application, but there's one step we actually need to pay attention to in order for it to work correctly. So it'll come up with this message. Just click on More Info and then Run Anyway. Go ahead and say yes, allow it to make changes. And select your language. Then click Next. Now this is the part that's important. It will automatically try to install it on the D drive, which is really not what you want. Even if you have, some computers now don't even have a D drive, and even if they do, it's meant for recovery purposes only. It's not really used for the system. So you simply want to click Browse and change it over to your C drive, just like that, and everything will be just fine after that. So click Next. And next again, and I like to create a desktop icon, so go ahead and make one of those. And then click Install. And there we have it. So I'm not going to launch it there. So finish that. Now we can get out of this folder. So as you can see, there is the CPS. And now this folder also includes the new firmware. So if you wanted to update the firmware, you have all of that information here. But we are not going to do that today, and it's not necessary to start using the radio. So go ahead and double click on this application we've just installed. And here we go. So this is the programming software. Now we should be able to, since we have our radio turned on and plugged in, if we click on this COM port button up here, we should be able to see the radio. Oh, there we go. So we didn't actually have it plugged in all the way on the radio. So that's definitely something to look for. If you don't see it, make sure it's plugged in. Try it again and make sure it's actually plugged in all the way on the radio, because it can feel like it is, but it's not. So there we go. COM3. So we found the radio. Now at this point, you want to click on the button just left of that says Read from Radio. Click on that, and then we'll go ahead and read. We just need to read the other data at this point since it's brand new. There we go, read data completed. So this is everything your radio currently has on it. Now we don't really need to do too much here, so I'm actually going to get rid of these initial channels because I don't really have any use for them. And there we go, we have a blank slate now. So we need to go gather a little bit of information. So we are going to need to find a local repeater. We need to find out what our own information is, our call sign, and if you don't have one already, you will want to register for a DMR ID if you want to talk on DMR. Now you can also just program in regular analog repeaters. They work fine too, but today we're going to talk on a DMR repeater. So let's open up our web browser. And you'll want to get a piece of paper or a digital notepad, whatever you prefer, ready just to write this information down. So first, let's go make sure we have all of the info that we personally need. So go to radioid.net. And from here, go to database. And if you already know your DMR ID and your call sign, we don't need to do this. So then go to user DMR ID search. And this is really handy. So you can just type your call sign in this section where it says call sign. There we go. And then press search. And it will show you your DMR ID. So I have mine written down here. So we have that, and I know my call sign. So we've got that part taken care of. Now, if I go back to the CPS, we can go ahead and add that information in. So you will go to digital, open up the digital tab. And then from there, you will want to go to radio ID list. Now it has a blank one in here by factory, and if you don't actually have something in here, it will not work. So make sure you put this in. Now if you don't have a radio ID yet, you're waiting on it and you just want to use it with analog systems, you can just leave this blank information in here that it comes with. So I'm going to add my ID in here. And then down here, typically I like to put my first name and call sign. There we go, perfect. And there's one more place we really should add this information. You don't have to by any means, but it makes your experience a lot more interesting. So go to optional settings on the left-hand side, and then go up to power on, and change this from default interface to custom, it's supposed to be custom character. And then in here, what we can do is add our name, just delete the information that's there, and our call sign. There we go. And that way, when the radio turns on, it will actually show our call sign. There's one other thing I want to do here, and you don't have to, but let me change this real quick. If you go to work mode, I want to change this display mode to display the channel instead of the frequency. Now you don't have to do this, but it will make it a lot easier for you. What that's going to do is on the display, it will actually display the names that we're going to add in for our different channels, as opposed to simply displaying the frequency or the channel number, which we'd never really be able to remember. So make sure you do that. And then I also like to turn off sub-channel mode. It kind of just gets confusing. You can still use the sub-channel without it displaying it. So personal preference, but that is what I would recommend for you. There we go. So now we need to go get our information for our talk groups that we want to program in and our repeater. So open up your web browser again and go to repeaterbook.com. And then select your location, your region. So in this case, I'm in North America, so we'll select that. And this interface is great, so you can just select wherever you are on the map. So I'm in Missouri, we'll select that. And then I'm looking for a DMR repeater, so I can filter it down by DMR. Oops. Looks like we have an ad here. And then from here, you can just go through and find one that looks good for you. But in this case, I know what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do a Control F and search for it for the KCI repeater, which is actually moved up north now, but it's close enough for us to hit it from here. So go ahead and click on the frequency over on the left-hand side, and it will open up that repeater with all of the information. So now we can see our uplink and our downlink frequencies right up here. We can see what that makes our offset, obviously. And then we have some other information. So we'll need the uplink and downlink. We will need the color code, which is 4, so I've got that written down. And then we will also need to find out what time slot we should be on. So down here under notes, it says use time slot 1 for all other Brandmeister talk groups. So that's what we are looking to do. We're looking to go on, all these different Brandmeister talk groups. So in this case, we want to use time slot 1. But this may be different for each and every repeater, so you want to make sure to check this. Okay, so we have that information. So go back to your channels in your CPS, and we're going to create our first channel. So double click on 1 in your channels section to create a channel. And in this case, we want to make it a digital channel, which it already is. And so we can put our receive and transmit frequencies. So the uplink is going to be your transmit frequency. So in this case, that is 449.4625. And then the downlink frequency is going to be your receive frequency. It's coming down from the repeater. So that's what we are receiving, 444.4625. Perfect, and all of this looks good. You can select your power. Generally high or turbo is pretty good for local repeaters, just so you can be guaranteed to reach them. But if you were setting up a hotspot, for example, in your home, you wouldn't need to be transmitting at high power to it. Then from here, we want to select color code 4 and time slot 1, which we have selected. And there's one other thing which we haven't talked about yet that we need to select, which is the contact. If we click on this, you can see the contact 1. There's one in here, but that's not going to do much for us. So we actually need to create a talk group list. Now you can download talk group lists or import them from other locations, or you can just add some talk groups yourself. So that's what we're going to do today, just some basic ones. So I'm going to say OK here, but we will need to come back and change that contact. So open up your web browser one more time, and I'm just going to do a Google search for Brandmeister talk groups. Oh. There we go, Brandmeister talk groups. So here we go, pistar.uk. Looks like they have a list. This is a pretty good resource for finding them. There's quite a few out there. So I want to look for the parrot. So do a Control F, and there's the parrot. So we can see the talk group number here. This is what we will need. So 9990. So I've got that written down. Now I also want one of the essential talk groups you'll need is disconnect. You won't be able to get out of anything if you don't have this one. So disconnect, that is 4000. So I've got that written down. And then I also, just for today, I want to put in my local state talk group. So here we go. Looks like that one is 3129. But there's a lot of different talk groups. All the states are on here. There's international talk groups, just about everything you can imagine. So you can have a lot of fun with this. But today we're just going to go with these. So I'm going to get out of here. And from here we want to go into digital and then contact/talk group. And then we can get rid of this first one. In fact, I'm just going to take it over. And we'll change the name to Parrot. And Parrot, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make it a private call. And then enter the number, 9990. And don't need a call alert. Perfect. Say OK. Oops. At least one call. OK. Well, learn something new every day. So you can't actually create a private call without having at least a group call. So we'll come back to that. Now we're going to enter our Missouri talk group. And enter the number for that, which is 3129. Now this one is important that it's a group call because we're getting on there with lots of other people on the Missouri talk group. So that will need to be a group call. I'm just going to go back and change this to private. Like I said, I don't know for sure that that matters. It's kind of a preference thing. And then we also want the disconnect. And that is going to be talk group 4000. Perfect. There we go. So we have some talk groups now. So now we can go back to our channel. And what I'm going to do here is simply duplicate this. So I can copy and then come down here and I can paste. And you can also do Control-V for this. Now I have 3 of these that work with that repeater, and now I just need to give them names and select the contact. So open up one of them. This one, we can make this the parrot. And we already have parrot selected, so we are good. Now this one, give it a name up here. We will make this Missouri. And change our contact to Missouri. Say OK. And now this one, double click on it. Let's make this one the disconnect, the last one. And change our contact to disconnect. Perfect, there we have it. So we were almost ready to go. Now there's one more thing we need to do, or else none of this will work when we write it to the radio. So you want to go into zone and create a zone. If you don't have a zone, you won't actually be able to access anything. And if you don't have your channels in your zone, you won't be able to see them either. So go ahead and create a zone. So I'm just going to do local. We'll just call it local. It's our local repeater. And we'll add everything over here. Now in this zone, you can have primary channels. So whenever you turn on your radio and go to that zone, it will automatically populate. So we'll just make that the parrot for now. And the secondary will make the disconnect. That way, as we add more, it's real easy to get to the parrot to test it out that it's working and the disconnect. So say OK. OK, so I believe we have almost everything. There's actually one more thing. I almost forgot about this. You want to go ahead and change this DMR mode. So open up your channels and change the DMR mode from simplex to repeater. Now this is important. It will not work correctly if you don't do this. So we'll go and do this with all of the ones we've created so far. Luckily, we haven't created very many. So there we go. Perfect. So now everything should work just fine. So at this point, make sure your radio is still plugged in and turned on. And then click on this COM port button up here. Make sure it's selected, which it is. And then we're going to click Write to Radio. Click OK, and then in this case, just the other data. Now at some point you will want to enter that digital contact list. There we go, it's complete. And that will allow you to see everything. Okay, let's see, it's powering up here. The digital contact list will allow you to see all of the name and call sign information for everyone you talk to out in the DMR network. Now you can download that list and import it into the CPS, but it's not essential for getting on the air, so we won't talk about it today. So as it powered up, we could see the cool name and call sign that we added to the front screen. So now at this point, we can try it out. So because we're kind of in a valley here, I set all of these to high, but for this particular test, we're probably going to need turbo. So just click on menu and then go down to settings. And you can assign buttons to actually change the power levels. Just about everything on here you can assign a button for. So channel set and TX power. But there's always a way to do it manually as well, which we're doing right here. And this will give us the best chance of hitting this. So we can see our zone is there, the local zone we created, and then we have repeater. The repeater, or I'm sorry, the talk group up top. So those are all the channels we made that are inside of that one zone. So we'll try the parrot real quick. This is W3AMG trying out my newly programmed radio. Okay, we got the tail end of that. So we're a little bit short on reception just because, like I said, we're in this big building down in the valley. It's not great compared to where the repeater is. So I'm going to get a little bit closer to the window. We'll try it out again. This is W3AMG trying out my newly programmed radio.
This is W3AMG trying out my newly programmed radio.
There we go. It works great. So it's really that simple to get on the air. If you want to expedite this process, we offer a variety of solutions for that with plug-and-play package and a supercode plug, and that'll get you on the air immediately with no extra effort like this. But it's really not too difficult. So if you want to learn how it works, this is a great way for you to do so. You should have everything you need to start making digital contacts with your brand new AnyTone 878UVII+. If you're still having trouble, go back through the video and make sure you've completed every step. After you've completed this quick start guide, click the link down below to learn how to program digital contact lists into your radio. Thanks again for watching. I'm Cody, W3AMG with Bridgecom Systems 7.3.